metra, pentameter. Heroic drama, heroic tragedy was written in iambic pentameter. Another characteristic of heroic tragedy is that it focuses on the founding of a nation. It focuses on the founding of a nation. Heroic tragedy focuses on the founding of a nation, how a nation started, how a particular country was formed, the story of the founding of a particular nation. Another characteristic of heroic tragedy is that it contains mythic events. It contains mythic events from myths. You have mythic, M-Y-T-H-I-C. Contains mythic events. Heroic drama contains mythic events. A myth is a grand story whose authorship is unknown and which tells fantastic stories, implausible stories about nature or natural phenomena like creation, like the creation myth. Okay, so heroic drama contains mythic events. And another important characteristic of heroic tragedy is that it has a powerful hero, a hero that is larger than life. That's a powerful hero, a hero that is larger than life. So, by way of a recap, heroic drama was popular in the Restoration period in English history. The Restoration period lasted between 1660 and 1700. The Restoration period lasted between 1660 and 1700. It is heroic because it is epic in nature. That's a grand style. It is specifically written in heroic verse, which means that it is written in iambic pentameter. What you need to note. Then we move on to revenge tragedy. Revenge tragedy. Revenge tragedy. In revenge tragedy, as the name suggests, the theme of the play is revenge. The hero wants to pay back someone for the harm that was done to him. But because it is a tragedy, the hero will end up destroying himself in the cause of seeking revenge. The hero will end up destroying himself in the cause of seeking revenge. So that is revenge tragedy. A good example of revenge tragedy is Hamlet by William Shakespeare. A good example of revenge tragedy is Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Another type of tragedy I want to look at is domestic tragedy. Domestic tragedy. As the name suggests, this tragedy is a tragedy of a family. The tragedy of a family. So it presents a domestic situation. It focuses on a particular family and its downfall may be owing to the headship of the family. A good example is Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. A good example of domestic tragedy is Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, published in 1949. A good example of domestic tragedy is Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. Arthur is spelled A-R-T-H-U-R. Miller, Miller, Arthur Miller. It's an American drama. Then we have Senecan tragedy. Senecan tragedy. Senecan tragedy. Senecan is spelled Senecan, from Seneca. We have Senecan, Senecan, right? Right? Senecan tragedy. So this kind of tragedy is attributed to Seneca, who was a Roman philosopher, statesman, dramatist, and satirist. This type of drama is attributed to who? Seneca, who was who? A Roman philosopher, was a Stoic, Stoic, a Stoic Roman philosopher, statesman, dramatist, and a satirist. Satirist is a person who writes satires, right? Now, among the important characteristics of Senecan tragedy are a detailed account of horrible deeds. 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 The drama is full of long soliloquies. The drama is full of long soliloquies that reflect on the character or the character's thoughts. Contemplative. These soliloquies are contemplative. Senecan tragedies have long soliloquies that are philosophical and contemplative in nature. Another aspect of Senecan tragedy is the depiction of ghosts and witches. The depiction of ghosts and witches, which are the aspects of the supernatural in the play. You may not find gods or goddesses in a Senecan tragedy. You may not find gods or goddesses in Senecan tragedy, but you definitely come across, you're sure of what? Of ghosts and witches. All right? You're sure of ghosts and witches. You're sure to find ghosts and witches appearing in the Senecan tragedy. And you must know that Shakespeare modeled most of his plays after Seneca. So you definitely come across these features, some of Shakespeare's plays. We'll talk about that more when we're looking at the Renaissance drama. Right? And then another aspect of Senecan tragedy is that it is written in blank verse. Senecan tragedy is written in blank verse. Senecan tragedy is written in blank verse. And what do you mean by blank verse? Blank verse refers to a poem or a stanza of a poem which has meter but has no rhyme. Which has meter but has no rhyme. It has meter because there is a careful consideration in the distribution of the rhythm in the lines. The poet pays attention to rhythm. There's rhythm. There's a conscious depiction of rhythm in the lines. But it has no rhyme because it is blank, right? There's no rhyme scheme. So that's what makes it blank. It is a verse because it has meter. It has meter means that there is regularity in rhythm, right? There's regularity in what? Rhythm. When we say that a poem has meter, it means that there's regularity in rhythm, right? but it is blank because there is no rhyme. So you need to note that. So Shakespeare is also known to use blank verse. So he modeled most of his works after Seneca. So this is that for drama. That is that for types of tragedy. Okay, so we'll continue our discussion of classical drama by looking at how Aristotle and Plato consider drama, what they think of drama. Okay? So, the history of drama, as far as the Western literature is concerned, goes back to Plato and Aristotle in classical Greece. Okay? The history of drama is linked up with the history of literature, and it goes back to ancient classical period with scholars, critics like Plato and Aristotle. So let us look at what Plato said about literature. Okay? Plato lived between 427 and 347 BC. Plato lived between 427 and 347 BC. He is the first person, is considered the first person to express a formalized thought on literature, though that thought was not necessarily favorable. So his ideas on literature, Plato's ideas on literature, are contained in several works like the Ion, I-O-N, Crito, and the Republic. You must have come across the text, The Republic, by Plato. Okay? Ion, I-O-N, Crito, C-R-I-T-O, Crito, C-R-I-T-O, and the Republic, or you can call it the Ideal Republic. These are the works in which you could find Plato's ideas on literature. Okay? Plato believed that ultimate reality was spiritual. Plato believed that ultimate reality was what? Spiritual. Which he called the One. The One. That's one in capital initial letter. The One. Plato was a student of Socrates. Plato was a student of Socrates. Plato was a student of Socrates. Socrates is spelled S-O-C-R-A-T-E-S. Socrates is attributed or associated with the statement, "Man, know thyself. An unexamined life is not worth living." Man, know thyself. An unexamined life is not worth living. Man, know thyself. An unexamined life is not worth living. So he was a Stoic, S-T-O-I-C, who used questions to guide the people of his time, especially the youth, to arrive at the truth or answers about life. To arrive at the truth or answers about life. Remember that the ancient classical scholars were interested in discovering the truth, all right, which is synonymous with reality. Please take note of all these things. Truth is synonymous with what? Reality. Reality is truth, and truth is reality as far as the ancients are concerned. And when I say the ancients, I'm talking about the classical guys, right? So you need to know that. Plato had a school called the Academy. Plato had a school called the Academy. Plato had a school called the Academy. In this school, he taught formal logic and reasoning. In this school, Plato taught formal logic and reasoning. In this school, Plato taught formal logic and reasoning. At the entrance of the school, you have this statement: let no one enter here who is not a geometer. Let no one enter here who is not a geometer. Let no one enter here who is not a geometer. Geometer is spelled Geometer. Geometer. A geometer is a person who is an expert in reasoning and logic, in logical reasoning. A geometer is a person who is an expert in what? In what? In reasoning and logic. So, because for Plato, reality is spiritual, Plato sees the spiritual world as the original world. Plato sees the spiritual world as the original world. The spiritual world is what he also calls the world of forms. The world of forms, which is invisible. The spiritual world is what he also called what? The world of forms, which is what? Invisible. Which is invisible. And all things that exist in the physical world have their original versions in the spiritual world. All the things that exist in the physical world have their original version. Where? In the spiritual world or in the world of forms. Okay? So the physical world is an imitation of the world of forms. Okay? The physical world is an imitation of the world of form or the spiritual world. So everything in the physical world is an imitation of the original version in the spiritual world. And now the artist imitates the physical world. The artist does what? Imitates the physical world. The artist imitates the physical world. This makes what the writer has written to be an imitation of imitation. This makes what the writer has written to be what? An imitation of an imitation. That means that the writer's art is 2 steps removed from reality. The writer's work is 2 steps removed from reality. If you take this desk, for instance, the desk in this class, for instance, Plato believes that the original desk is in the spiritual world, that this desk is an imitation of that one. And so the artist now comes in to do what? To draw this desk. on his paper. So what on his canvas, what the artist has done is an imitation of an imitation. All right? Making what he has drawn on the paper 2 steps removed from what? From reality. So literature then becomes an imitation of an imitation. All right? So this explains why Plato said that literature is fiction. Literature is what? Fiction. And by fiction, it means that it is what? Falsehood. It is false. Literature is fiction. And by that, it meant that literature is false. It's not real. It's not true to life. It's far away from reality. It's far away from the truth. All right? And said that literature should have no place in the ideal society that he has fashioned in the Republic. Okay? So, as far as Plato is concerned, such a work of art will not encourage morality in the youth, in society, in young people, will not be a good tool for bringing up young minds in society. Okay? Because it is not true. The gods lie in the epic, the gods lie, interfere in human affairs, take sides when they're supposed to be objective, favor people. And let us say it's not a good example for the youth. And so Plato decided to ban all writers from the ideal society, from the Republic. Okay? So for a work of literature to have a place in Plato's society, it must meet the moral criterion. All right? It must only great works of great writers, works that have high moral content, and whose writers are also morally upright should be allowed to exist in the ideal society, in the Republic. Right? So that was what Plato said. Otherwise, the others should be banned, should be banished. Okay? So that was Plato's idea on literature and, of course, drama, if you like. So let's look at Aristotle. Let's look at what Aristotle said. Aristotle, Aristotle, Aristotle. Aristotle, Aristotle, Aristotle. Aristotle lived between 384 and 322 BC. Aristotle lived between 384 and what? 322 BC. 322 BC. BC means before Christ. Some people might use BCE. BCE, meaning before the common era. Before the common era. BCE is used so that it will be religion neutral for those who are not Christians, right? So you take note of that. So BC or BCE. So Aristotle was Plato's student. Plato taught Aristotle. Aristotle taught who? Alexander. Okay? Who taught Plato? Socrates. Right? So, Aristotle's ideas on literature are contained in a work entitled The Poetics. The work entitled The Poetics. The Poetics is spelled Poetics. The Poetics. Most of Aristotle's ideas on literature are contained in that epic seminal work, the Poetics. Now, Aristotle's work emphasizes the elements of a literary work, elements of literature, elements of drama. As I said, Aristotle had studied in Plato's school. And what was the name of Plato's school? The Academy. The Academy. Okay? After he graduated and became independent, he established his own school. His school was the Lyceum. The Lyceum. Aristotle's school was the Lyceum. They spell Lyceum. Lyceum, the Lyceum. Aristotle established his own school, the Lyceum. This is a school of scientific and philosophical thought and investigation. The Lyceum. A school of what? Scientific and philosophical thought and investigation. The Lyceum. As far as literature is concerned, Aristotle disagreed with his teacher on how literature should be conceived in society. Aristotle disagreed with his teacher on how literature should be conceived in society, on literature's role and function in society, or how literature should be formalized in society. Okay? So he wrote the Poetics to respond to Plato's accusations of literature and the writer in the Republic. Aristotle wrote the Poetics as a way of responding to the accusations that his teacher, Plato, had made against literature in the Republic. Okay? So, Aristotle upholds the mimetic nature of literature, the fact that literature is an imitation. Okay? But for him, it is not false. He sees literature, Aristotle sees literature as an imitation of reality. An imitation of what? Reality. Part of this imitation is the need, the purpose of providing entertainment. The purpose of providing what? Entertainment to people, which is literature's primary function. Which is literature's primary function. Because human beings love the art of imitation. From the classical time till today, people love stories. People like their stories to be told again and again, which is representation. All right? The hunter goes into the bush and encounters many adventures. When he comes back, he gathers his family and tells them the story again. That's literature. Storytelling is literature. Storytelling is theater. Okay? People love imitation. People love storytelling. So Plato had believed that this type of pleasure can undermine the structure of society. Aristotle disagreed. Okay? Aristotle believes that literature is not two steps removed from reality. Why? Aristotle believes that literature is not two steps removed from reality. Why? Because, unlike his teacher, he takes the physical world to be the primary world, to be the original world. His teacher has taken the spiritual world to be the original world, but Aristotle decides that we should take the physical world that we see and know, the material world that we see and know, as what? As the original world. So that the work that the poet does, the artist does, will not be 2 steps removed from reality. It will just be 1 step removed from reality. Okay? It will just be 1 step removed from reality. So, Aristotle also emphasizes the universal quality of literature. The universal quality of literature. Literature has a universal nature, universal appeal, because it depicts possibilities, things that are possible, rather than things that have happened already. That means literature is higher than history. Literature is not history. Literature is a higher art than history. Because while history deals with what has happened, literature deals with what can happen or what could happen. Please take note of all this. So that makes literature, that elevates literature above history. While history deals with what has happened, literature deals with what can or what could happen or what is possible. All right? So that makes literature to have what? Universality. Okay? Another thing is that literature expresses the ideal. Literature expresses the ideal. The ideal. The ideal is things as they should be and not things as they are. Literature expresses the ideal. Things as they should be and not things as they are. Aristotle believes that literature should express the ideal, ideal, things as they should be, not things as they are. Again, this is what also makes literature a higher art, or drama a higher art. Aristotle values tragedy over comedy. Aristotle values tragedy over comedy. He sees tragedy as a higher art than comedy. Aristotle values tragedy over comedy and sees tragedy as a higher art than what? Comedy. For Aristotle, great writers mimic the actions of great men, heroes, nobles. And this is the characters that are depicted in tragedy. Great men, noble, highly placed individuals. Highly placed individuals are depicted in tragedy. Lesser writers, base writers, wrote comedy as far as Aristotle is concerned. Lesser writers or base writers wrote comedy as far as Aristotle is concerned. So Aristotle's concern is with tragedy. And this is what he formalizes on in the Poetics. Tragedy imitates nature. Tragedy imitates nature. Tragedy imitates nature. It is a high art because it depicts the actions of great men. It's a high art because it depicts the actions of great men. It's a high art because it depicts the actions of great men. The action of noble characters. Aristotle also posited that the work of literature has its own form. The work of literature has its own form. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and has an end. And the three parts are organically related. The three parts are organically related. The three parts are organically related. This is what he calls the unified plot. This is what is called the unified plot, where all the parts of the work are organically related. He also gave a thought on who the tragic hero should be. So we have the Aristotelian conception of the tragic hero. You asked, what is the Aristotelian conception of the tragic hero? As far as Aristotle is concerned, the tragic hero should be a highly placed member of society. The tragic hero should be a highly placed member of society. Should be a noble, a king, or a queen who is well admired by the people around him. It's well admired by the people around him. You should have admirable qualities, qualities that people love. But in the midst of these qualities, you should have a flaw. You should have a flaw, a character flaw. Flaw is spelled F-L-A-W. All right? You should have a character flaw. This character flaw is called tragic flaw. And it is this tragic flaw that will lead to his disgrace, to his destruction, to his fall, and possibly to his death. And that is the tragedy, the fall of a great man. All right? In Aristotelian conception of tragedy, tragedy is the fall of a great man, a great person, a highly placed person. All right? It has to be the fall of a great man so that everybody around him will learn a lesson. All right? Because we must learn a lesson. All right? In the voice of Asari Dokubo, we must learn a lesson. All right? Good. And his fall should create pity and dread in the mind of the theater goers. And which must be purged through catharsis. Through catharsis, which we talked about. Tragedy for Aristotle must be universal, not particular, as literature deals with what could happen and not what has happened. So we'll now move on and talk about the components of Aristotelian tragedy. The components of Aristotelian tragedy. How many are there? 6 of them. The 6 components of Aristotelian tragedy. Okay? Number 1 is plot. Number 1 is plot. Number 1 is plot, which he calls mythos. Mythos, which he calls mythos. M-Y-T-H-O-S, which he calls mythos. M-Y-T-H-O-S, plot, mythos. Number 2 is character. Number 2 is character. Character. He calls it ethos. Ethos. E-T-H-O-S. Ethos. Or eth. That's E-T-H-E. Eth. Or ethos. Character. Number 3 is diction. Diction. Number 3 is diction, which he calls lexis. Lexis. L-E-X-I-S. L-E-X-I-S. Lexis. Number 3 is diction, which he calls lexis. L-E-X-I-S. Number 4 is thought. thought, T-H-O-U-G-H-T, thought, thought, which he calls Dina, Dina. I'll spell Dina, D-I-A-N-O-I-A. I'll take that again, D-I-A-N-O-I-A, Dina. Number 5 is spectacle. 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 Number 5 is what? Spectacle, which you call mellows or molpe. Mellows. Sorry. Spectacle is opsis. Spectacle is opsis. Opsis is spelled O-P-S-I-S. Opsis. All right? Spectacle. Opsis. O-P-S-I-S. All right? Then number 6 is melody. Number 6 is melody. Number 6 is melody, which he calls mellows or molpe. Mellows is spelled M-E-L-O-S. M-E-L-O-S or molpe. M-O-L-P-E. M-O-L-P-E. All right? Let us go back to number 1. Number 1 is what? Plot. Number 1 is plot. This answers the question, what? What? So it is the storyline. It is the sequence in which the story is organized. It's the storyline. Plot answers the question, what? All right? So it is the storyline. It is a sequence in which the story is organized. The sequence in which the story is organized, the storyline. The main action. Plot refers to the main action. Because remember, Aristotle has said that in the 3 unities, the unity of action implies that the work of art should have one main action. All right? One main action. That is a single plot. Okay? A single plot. That implies a single plot. We also have what we call double plot, where the story has 2 streams of actions. All right? And we also have what we call subplots. That means less important actions that divert from the main action. So you need to note this: plot, double plots, single plots, subplots. You need to take down these notes and note them. So this is the selection and organization of events in a tragedy. Plot refers to the selection and organization of events in a tragedy. Remember, we've talked about the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, or denouement as part of the dramatic plot. Number 2 is character. Number 2 is character. This refers to the abstract moral quality in a drama. Refers to the abstract moral quality in a drama. The abstract moral quality in a drama. It could also refer to the personages selected, chosen by the authors to inhabit the world that he has created in drama. The personages, P-E-R-S-O-N-A-G-E-S, personages. Character is really defined by the moral quality of the character. Remember that ancient drama was concerned with the issue of morality. All right? So character refers to the traits, the traits, the moral qualities that make up a particular individual moral constitution, an individual's moral constitution. It's the person's character. All right? So, we had said that in Greek drama, the first actor was who? The first actor was who? Thespis. All right? Thespis. He is known as the protagonist. Protagonist. The protagonist is the character that the audience usually sympathizes with and is often opposed by the antagonist. All right? In the discussion of character, you must know the protagonist, the hero or the heroine. All right? The hero is usually the focus of the story. So the hero is likely to be the protagonist, the one that the audience loves. So, in ancient drama, we have the second actor. The first actor that was introduced was the protagonist. Then the second actor is known as the Taragonist. Second actor that was introduced was the Taragonist. Let me spell the Taragonist. Deuteragist. The Taragonist. Deuteragonist. 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 That's the second actor. This second actor was introduced by Aeschylus. The second actor was introduced by Aeschylus. Aeschylus is spelled Aeschylus. Aeschylus, I spell again, Aeschylus. Aeschylus. The Taragonist was introduced by Aeschylus. All right? And then we have a third actor in classical drama, which was introduced by Sophocles. It is called Tritagonist. It's called what? Tritagonist. Tritagonist. It's spelled Tritagonist. 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 It was introduced by who? Sophocles. All right? As the third most important author. So the first important author in classical tragedy or drama is the protagonist, followed by the Taragonist, and then the Tritagonist. All right? Dupert asked this question in one of the past questions. They asked about either the Taragonist or Tritagonist. So it's important for you pay attention to every concept that we've mentioned. You must not be found wanting in class. You must pay attention to any of this, to everything that we are saying. All right? Now, an antagonist is the person who opposes the protagonist, as far as characterization is concerned. And then we have the villain. The villain is the evil character in drama. The evil character in drama. The villain is spelled V-I-L-L-A-N. Let me take that again. V-I-L-L-A-I-N. A-I-N. V-I-L-L-A-I-N. Villain. The evil character. His nature is evil. All right? From the beginning to the end, his nature is evil. The evil character in a literary work. Okay? And the hero is known for his self-sacrifice and bravery or courage. In classical drama, the hero is known for what? Courage, bravery, and sacrifice, the ability to sacrifice himself. Physical, heroic attributes, including morality, high moral standing. Okay? That's the hero. So the woman is the heroine. The woman is the heroine. Okay? The woman is the heroine. And you also have the clown that creates fun. We can call him jester. We can call him jester that creates fun as part of the characterization. Clown or jester creates fun. Makes people laugh. Okay? Now, let us move from there and talk about diction or lexis. Diction. Diction refers to the choice of words by a writer, the use of language. All right? And now, in talking about characterization in Greek drama, don't forget the chorus. The chorus, in fact, the chorus was the first set of characterization in Greek drama. We've said this. Chorus is very important in Greek drama. And in previous classes, we've discussed the importance of the chorus in Greek drama. All right? Very important. Now, let's talk about diction. Diction refers to the choice of words by a writer. And this specifically relates to the dialogue in drama. Okay? Classical drama used mostly poetic verse. Used what? Mostly what? Poetic verse. All right? Poetic drama. That means the dialogue was written in the form of poetry, especially when it was spoken by highly placed characters that were highly placed. The dialogue was written in poetry, especially when it was spoken by highly placed characters. Characters that were not highly placed, common people in the play usually spoke prose, right? The common people in the play usually spoke prose. And Aristotle advocated that language should be used according to the individual's station of life. By station of life, we refer to the individual's status or rank or class. The person's status or rank or class. Then we look at thought. So this refers to the ideas, the themes in a work of art, the thought of the writer, the philosophy, the ideas in a work of art, the ideologies behind the story. Every story is packed with ideologies. There is no innocent story. There's no innocent story. All stories are based on ideas that the author wants to send across to the reader. And these ideas refer to the themes of the work of art. They are packed with ideologies. All right? So, thought answers the question why. Diction answers the question how. So at the level of diction, you are talking about the style of the work. How does the writer convey his thoughts? All right? Then character answers the question who. Character does what? Answers the question who. Plot answers the question what. That is the story. Then character answers the question who. Who are involved in this story? All right? Who is the story all about? The protagonist, the antagonist, the Taragonist, the Tritagonist. Okay? And then you have thought. Thought is why. Thought is why. Answers the question why. It refers to the ideas depicted in a story. And then you have spectacle. Spectacle answers the question where. Answers the question where. That means it takes into consideration the setting and the scenery of the literary work. It takes into consideration the setting and the scenery, all right, of the literary work. All that you see on stage constitutes what? Spectacle. All that you see on the stage constitutes what? Spectacle. Setting refers to the time and place in which a work of art is set. All right? So, spectacle refers to the performance of the play put together when considered as a whole. Setting refers to the performance of the play when considered as a whole. It takes into consideration costumes, props, stage decoration, and so on and so forth. We've talked about most of these things when we were looking at elements of drama. And then finally, we have melody. Melody, this is the music, the chorus, the song in a work of art. Okay? Now, I want you to look at the differences in these terms: hamartia, hubris, peripetia, anagnosis, and catharsis. Somebody should say, what's the difference between hamartia and hubris? What's the difference between hamartia and hubris? We talked about this in the previous classes. So you see, you have to be up to date. You have to be alert because of the kind of program you are in. Hamartia is a general weakness associated with the tragic hero, including pride and arrogance. All right? Hubris is specifically pride and arrogance, which is the flaw in the tragic hero that leads to his fall. All right? Then, what is anagnosis? What is anagnosis? Anagnosis, you have to refer to the past, whereas the thing should be with you, should be in you. You don't have to. When you get back home every day, you have to review your notes and expand on them. That's how the things will remain in you. It's not when you ask the question, you now start going back. Okay? So anagnosis is the sudden awareness or realization, sudden knowledge that implies the fall of the tragic hero. Okay? Catharsis. What is catharsis? What is catharsis? The purging of the emotion. The purging of the emotions. You've got to sit up. You have to sit up. The purging of the emotion. All right? Which is part of the resolution of a play. In tragedy, because because of the tragic events depicted on stage, the reader's emotion is messed up. The audience emotion is messed up and has to be purged. The process of doing that is catharsis. Okay? What are the three unities? What are the three unities? Faith. What are the three unities? Just mention them. Unity of what, and what? Yene. What are the three unities? Precious. What are the three unities? Unity of action, place, and time. Okay? The unity of action specifies that the play should have a single main action. The play should have a single main action. The unity of place implies that the play must be set at a single place, particular location. Okay? It's not, as I said, it's not all the time that the playwright follows all these rules, like a game in the Othello, which has two place settings, Venice and Cyprus, right? Then the unity of time, the play must take place within one revolution of the sun, within 24 hours. Okay? And that's at most within 24 hours. Okay? Let us look at the structure of the Greek theater. The structure of the Greek theater. We are making progress. I suppose when we come back, we'll definitely move on to Renaissance drama. The structure of the Greek theater. So the Greek theater evolved from wood to marble and then to stone. The plays were staged in ancient Greece was called the amphitheater. The amphitheater. Plays were staged in the amphitheater. The Greek theater was built on a hillside. Amphitheater, A-M-P-H-I-T-H-E-A-T-R-E. Amphitheater. The Greek theater was built on a hillside. It was semicircular in shape because of the organization of the chorus. The chorus used to gather in circle, right? So the play was staged in the amphitheater. Now we are going to look at the structure of the theater itself. It has a place called the orchestra. That's a place called the orchestra, spelled O-R-C-H-E-S-T-R-A, the orchestra. The orchestra, O-R-C-H-E-S-T-R-A, the orchestra. The orchestra is known as dancing space. It is circular in shape. Dancing space, it is circular in shape. It's circular in shape. This is the space where the chorus sings and dances with the actors on the stage near the skin. This is the space where the chorus sings and dances with the actors on the stage near the skin. The skin is spelled S-K-E-N-E. All right? The space where the chorus sings and dances with the actors on the stage. Then you have the altar. The altar. Another name for the altar was thymel. Thymel. It is spelled T-H-Y-M-E-L-E. Thymel. T-H-Y-M-E-L-E. Thymel. Right? So the altar is at the center of the orchestra. The altar is at the center of the orchestra. The altar is at the center of the orchestra. Thymel, T-H-Y-M-E-L-E, or the altar is at the center of the orchestra. The orchestra of the Theater of Dionysus in Athens was about 60 feet in diameter. As a fact, the orchestra of the Theater of Dionysus in Athens was about 60 feet in diameter. You take note of that. Then another part of the theater is the theatron. The theatron, Theatron. Theatron, Theatron, the theatron. 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 Another name, this is called the viewing place. The viewing place. The viewing place. This is where the spectators sit. Theatron. This is called the viewing place. It is where the spectators sit. You should take down notes. Theatron. Theatron. The viewing place. It is where the spectators sit. Then you have the scheme. The scheme. We already mentioned the scheme when we talk about the orchestra. The scheme is called tent. T-E-N-T. The tent. Scheme is spelled S-K-E-N-E. Scheme. And also call it tent. It is the building directly behind the stage, used as backstage. The building directly behind the stage, used as what? Backstage. Used as backstage. So the Greek theater was an open-air structure made up of 3 parts. The Greek theater was an open-air structure made up of 3 parts: the orchestra, the scheme, and the audience. It was up to 150 meters across. There was an altar that was dedicated to Dionysus. Then we also have the proskene. Proskene. We also had the proskene. Proskene is spelled P-R-O, then you add skene. It's a raised acting area in the front of the skene. A raised acting area in the front of the skene. So in the Greek theater, the audience sat at on the tiers of the benches built up on the side of the hill. The Greek theater was not covered. That's why we call it open air. It was open. So these theaters were outdoors. Players used to wear masks, and the characters consisted of the chorus and 3 characters. The characters consisted of the chorus and 3 characters. Can you mention the 3 characters by the names as I just gave you? Protagonist, Deuteragonist, and Tritagonist. Okay? So I guess we will stop there for now. When we come back, we'll look at briefly, we'll look at medieval drama, and then we move on to Renaissance drama. All right? We'll talk specifically more on ancient or classical comedy when we want to look at Lysistrata as an introduction to Lysistrata. For now, that is where we bring our class to an end. Thank you.